Hi babes, it's me, Fuji. Welcome to my Animal Crossing adventure in making my favorite bags from the game. If you don't know what Animal Crossing is, it's basically a game where you work for a crook named Tom Nook paying off a debt on an island that you built from the ground up while the trash panda takes all the credit. But honestly, it's so much fun because you get to live out your millionaire dream and collect the cutest items like this fish Pochette. The fish bag. This is one of my favorite bags, and I'm so excited to be sharing with you all. I created my own pattern, which you can download in the link below so you can follow along and make your own. By doing a brief Google search, I found a cool website called House of Sew, and by their definition, I would say that this pattern is at an advanced beginner level. Without further ado, let's get started. The items that you will need are colorful fabric. I will be using fabric corresponding to the item in the game. However, you can choose whatever you'd like. Then you will need D-rings, 2 yards of 1-inch bag strap, black and white iron-on patches, a zipper, strap adjusters, interfacing, and stuffing, and any additional items used for sewing. Now you might be asking, Fuji, why the is there a lighter on your list? Well, I am glad you asked. For the bag straps, I'm using... I'm not even going to try to pronounce that word because it sounds offensive. Basically, to stop the ends from fraying, committing arson in a controlled manner to the ends is a sure way to stop that from happening. Anyways, moving right along. Starting with number 1, you'll need to pin and cut out 4 faces. This is going to be used for the head of our fish. Using the same fabric for the fins, you're going to want to cut out this many faces of each shape. Switching over to the whites of the fins, you'll need to cut out this many faces of each shape. Moving on to the rest of the body, just like 1, you will need to pin and cut out 4 faces of 2, 3, and 4, but only 2 faces of 5. Okay, let's sew the body. Put aside the head and the butt of the fish. These will be sewn in later in our process. Now with the scales of the body, we're going to take 2 faces and sew them right sides together about 1/4 of an inch along the rounded edges. Before turning them inside out, cut slits along the round edges close enough to the seam but not cutting all the way through. This will help create a smooth curve for your scales. Make sure to cut the corners of the scales to prevent puckering and then iron them flat. These fins could be a little tricky, but first you're going to group them to their corresponding numbers and you'll sew them together like this. Starting with fin number 6, line up the flat edge of 6A to 6B, making sure the curved edges are at the top. Facing right sides together, sew along the straight edge as close as you can, about 1/8 of an inch in. When you open up the fin, it should look something like this. Do the same to the other side, creating an alternating color pattern with the white in the middle. Then repeat these steps for all of number 6. Fin number 7 is just like number 6, except a little chunkier. With that, you're going to sew the flat side of 7A to 7B, making sure the curved edge is at the top. Then you do the same to the other side and repeat these steps all for number 7. Fin 8, the tail, is where it gets a little tricky. So instead of white being our center, it's going to be blue, so facing 8B to 8D, right sides together, curve at the top, you know the drill. Sew along the straight edge and it should look something like this. With 8A, line up the edge to 8B, right sides together, with the point facing down, and sew along the straight edge. Your fin should look something like this. If you end up overlapping the bottom, that's okay, because you're not going to see it. Then do the same to the other side and your tail fin should look like this. Repeat all these steps for the rest of 8. Now you're going to take your combined fins and sew them right sides together 1/8 of an inch on the outer edge of the fin, leaving a hole at the bottom, giving you 5 fins altogether. Then you're going to painfully turn them all inside out using whatever object you can. This one I'm using a chopstick to shove the outer corner of the fins, and you get this. If you made it this far, congratulations! We're not done with the fins yet. Using the stuffing or whatever you got, shove them in the fins. I use flat stuffing because I like to make things hard for myself, and it was the only thing I got. Honestly, this is optional. I just found it helps keep the shape of the fins so they're not all flopping around. I know the fish fins are not stiff, but I want them to be for the bag. Besides, look how squish. Part of the pattern pack, I provide a diagram to help you figure out placement of the parts. I hope you didn't forget about the head of our fish because it's time to sew on this. Our little fish head needs some paddle fins. So lining fin 6 a little lower in the center of the head, you're going to turn that fin towards the inside of the head and pin it in between the right sides of the faces like so. Do the same to the other head, trying to match it as best as you can. And sew along the curved edge of the fish about 1/4 of an inch where the fin is so that when you turn it inside out, you get a cute little sticky outy fin thing. By this time, you should have double of each part of the body besides the tail, and we finally get ready to see our fish! Coming back to our diagram, place each scale in order by number, overlapping each other one by one. I started with 5 and worked my way up, but if you cut it correctly, it should fall pretty naturally to the shape of a football. Pin the scales together, then you're going to sew a basting stitch along the top and the bottom to help hold them together. Now you can mirror the other half of the fish and pin and sew them together. With our eyeless kissy fishes and our interfacing, cut out 2 footballs the size of the fish. This does not need to be perfect because you'll just cut off the excess ends. Now you're going to take the football and iron the interfacing down to the back. Oh, what the fuck? Sorry about that. Iron the interfacing down on the back side of the fish and trim. The interfacing is to help stiffen the bag as well as prevent gapping between the scales. Before I forget, cut out 2 faces of number 10, then fold them in half, sewing along the open end, creating a tube. Turn this inside out, giving you 2 little straps that we'll be using for the D-rings. Taking our assembled mirrored fish, face them towards each other and pin for security. Whipping out that diagram once more, take your leftover fins and line them up on the inside of the fish and pin them down like so. Now you're going to take 2 pins and mark where your zipper is going to go. I pinned one about center of the top of the fish face and another an inch away from fin 7. Alright, whip out your D-rings. I know what you were thinking, you disgusting Fold them halfway between 10 and place one before the head of the zipper hole and another between the tail and the top fin 7. I like to keep it closer to fin 7 and you can use a diagram for reference. Sew a seam along the outer edge, leaving the hole for the zipper. And be careful when you're sewing so that you don't catch the tips of the fins. Now you can turn your fish inside out and see how far you've come! I've cried so much by accidentally stabbing myself with pins that I can literally watch this fish bag swim. Alright, time to contemplate your life choices while simultaneously salting your fish, because it's time to put in a zipper. I am honestly terrible at explaining and installing zippers that I will put a link in below that will probably help you better. But in attempts to explaining it, pin one side of the zipper right sides together to the hole, starting from the bottom of the zipper and working your way up. Then, using a zipper foot, sew as close to the zipper as possible. Then pin the other side to match, but make sure to open the zipper hole before sewing. After that's complete, turn your bag inside out, chop off any excess zipper, and you should have a fully functioning bag. Are you still there? Because you're gonna have to see this! Who let me start a YouTube? With the patches, cut out 2 white circles with 9A and 2 black circles with 9B. Now you're going to iron them to the face of your fish. Iron 1 white circle in the center of the head. Then center the black circle in the white one to create a pupil. And do the same to the other side. Alright, we need a strap. You can custom fit your strap to your size, or you can follow along and we'll make it adjustable. I cut one part of the strap about 17 inches, and the other part can be the rest of the 2 yards, or a little over double the small part. And don't forget, arson. Take the longer strap, feed it and fold it 1 inch through the D-ring by the head, and sew a box stitch to hold this end together. You can use the same colored thread to hide it in the strap, but for educational purposes, not because I was too lazy to switch it out, I used white. Anyway, you should end up with something that looks like this ugly mess. Then with the short strap, do the same thing to the D-ring by the tail. Now the adjuster. Attach the short end to the square ring, take your long end and loop it through the adjuster like this. Shimmy the adjuster down so it's out of your way. Then take the end of the strap and loop it through the square ring. Then follow that strap to the adjuster and push it through the middle bar so it folds over about 1 inch. And that's where you're going to sew your box seam to have a nice adjuster. And here's what it should look like. This is what it would look like if you chose the same colored thread as the strap. Ta-da! Now you have your very own fish bag. You can also make some lining to go on the inside. I put those instructions at the end of the video, so if you want to learn how to make it, you can wait or skip to the end. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more of these, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get updated on new videos. I hope this was easy to follow along and you had fun during the process. Now you have the DIY to make your own little fish bag IRL. If you made one yourself, I would love to see it. Tag me on Instagram or TikTok at @itmefuji. I also have a Patreon if you want to help support me in my creative endeavors and have full access to upcoming videos and patterns. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you next time. Ah, you made it. I'm so proud of you. Well, welcome to hell. Just kidding. It's the equivalent. Using a fabric of your choice, I chose the white fabric that I used for the fins. Cut out a football size of your bag. This doesn't need to be perfect because it's going inside the bag. Then you're just going to mark a hole the size of your zipper and sew along the edge with fabric right sides together. You won't need to turn this one inside out. Instead, just stuff your fish with it and line up the hole with the zipper. Fold the unhemmed seam to the edge of the zipper and pin in place. Now you're going to wield your tiny sword and hidden stitch all the way around the circle. All the way.
1 hour later.
And it should look something like this. Don't look at that. Like this. You can now proudly wear your bag. Thanks so much for watching, and I